Hey, welcome to Sun Life Art. Grab a drink, get comfortable, and let's start the video. In this video, I want to share how I've been practicing my line art. Because of my studies, I wasn't able to draw consistently, so for quite some time, which left me feeling a bit rusty. And along the way, I also felt like I lost some of my imagination during university. It became hard to remember what I was drawing. After finishing my pharmacy education, my motivation was quite low. And so this January, I finally found the motivation to start practicing again, even if it was just a little. Starting with the first artwork. This piece was more about loosening up and drawing without overthinking. There are definitely things I would improve, for example the hair, but it was an important step in my practice. I shared this piece online and asked for feedback on how to improve. I received a lot of advice, including reminders of tips I heard before. One of the key tips was to use line weight to show how light interacts with the subject. Thicker lines can indicate areas in shadow, while thinner lines can suggest where the light hits. Lines also tend to be thicker when they intersect or overlap. It's something I still find tricky, but I believe it's absolutely possible with more practice. I also noticed that I tend to be very heavy-handed because I want full control over my lines. This sometimes leads to inconsistent line thickness. To work on that, I'm considering using a smaller pen size so we can build up certain areas gradually without making the lines too thick. Of course, that wasn't the only advice I received. Studying an artist whose work you admire is incredibly valuable. That's why I chose a few artists whose line work I really love. The artists I really admire are Lineart, Likelihood Art, Lavender Town. Each of them approaches his line work differently and uses their tools in unique ways. For example, Likelihood Art often keeps their sketches as the final line art, refining and cleaning them up during the rendering process rather than creating separate polished lines. Lineart uses the same tool for both sketching and line art, but adjusts the size. By varying line thickness, he creates a sense of depth, using thicker lines for elements closer to the viewer and thinner lines for those further away. And then there's Lavender Town. Let's take a closer look at their approach. Here are some of the main tips I used from them during my practice. First, use a different color for the sketch and lower the opacity. This helps avoid stiff lines because you are focusing less on making the perfect replica of the sketch. Second, don't stress too much about making everything perfectly smooth. Over-polishing can take some of the personality. Another helpful tip was to keep the line art intentionally sketchy. Those natural imperfections can add a lot of character. I also worked on using fewer connecting lines. Leaving some lines open can make the drawing feel more dynamic. Instead of chasing the perfect line in one stroke, going over lines multiple times can help build better line weight. And lastly, hatching. It is a great way to add depth, shading, and texture using just lines. In addition to following Lavender Town's advice, I also tried out Likelihood's rendering style on one piece I made a while ago. The experience was really interesting because it gave me more freedom throughout the process instead of feeling like everything had to be perfect from the start. I could keep adjusting and refining things along the way. It made drawing feel more experimental and less rigid. Even so, I noticed that I personally enjoy focusing on line art first. Working with lines helps me feel grounded in the drawing, while coloring takes a lot more mental energy. Because of that, I usually prefer developing the piece through line work before diving into rendering. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the process. Feel free to like, comment and subscribe. And I will see you in the next video.